Hello, welcome to the Travel Tracker. This video is going to review with Berkeley County School trip requesters how to submit a trip request. Now, if you are a trip request submitter and you have no other role in the Travel Tracker, when you log in, you're only going to see these two tabs, the main tab and the calendar tab. Now, if you have other responsibility, other authority in the system, you may see more tabs. For example, if you are an approver in the school and you are also submitting trip requests, you will have other tabs because of your authority as a trip approver. Now, but submitting the trip request is the same no matter what your role in the travel tracker. So when you log in and you're on the main tab, notice it's going to default to the option Your Trip Request. In the option Your Trip Request, you're going to be able to view a list of all the trip requests that you have submitted, and you're going to be able to keep up with the status of those and the progress that those trip requests are making through the approval flow, as well as when they have had a vehicle and or a driver assigned. So all that information will be there and visible to you. Now, notice here in my list, I have one request that's listed because I've submitted one trip request so far. Now, of course, when you are brand new, you won't see anything here because you will not have submitted any trip request. Now, let's look at a little bit of the information that you can see as the requester about the trips that you have submitted. The first column is the requester information. So it's going to show your school and who submitted the trip, when the trip request was submitted, grade level. The second column is going to show you the trip number and the approval status. So you'll be able to see the level of approval that's pending, an email address of the individual you're waiting on, as well as information about passenger count and the month that is going to be part of, what month is going to be, this trip will be bid on. This is the trip leave date and time and the trip return date and time. We have the type of trip, it's a field trip, where it's going, the destination is listed, and then whether or not it's co-curricular or an extracurricular trip, and then the funding source. So a funding source is selected, you'll be able to see that funding information. And then the second to the last column is going to be the type of vehicle and the number of vehicles that were requested, and other information. For example, this is a charter request, and we can even see which charter company has been selected. And then the last column here, once your trip request is approved and a vehicle and a driver are assigned, then in this assignments column, you'll see which vehicle and driver have been assigned. So that's the information you'll be able to see in the trip request summary here. Now you can click anywhere on the trip information here and actually open up the request form. So I'm just going to click and it's going to open up the actual request form that I had filled out, and you can see here that I can review that information. Now notice that nothing is really editable by me, not much is anyway, because it's already been approved at a certain level. And so that makes this request form uneditable by me except for the date and the time. And so if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see the ability to reschedule the trip here. And there's a button here to reschedule the trip, and then it's going to allow you to put in the new date and or the new time and submit that. So you could reschedule the trip request and for the date and the time. You can also cancel the trip if necessary, and be sure that you put the reason that you're canceling this trip and just select the yes button if you're going to cancel this particular request. Now let's go ahead and look at a little bit more information, and then we're going to look at an actual trip request form. A couple of other things that I want to point out. The trips in this list are going to come by default only trips from this day forward. So you'll just see trips for today and in the future. Now if you wanted to see trip request that you had submitted in the past, you can use the All Trips button here and select that, and it will show you past trips. Or as well as trips from this day forward. Also notice that your trips can be sorted, and they're going to come sorted by pickup date, so that the trip at the top of the list is the trip that's going out next, but you could choose to sort it by trip number, putting them in order numerically, by location. If you are a submitter who is responsible for more than one school that you submit trip requests for, then you can kind of group them by school, by the vehicle type. If you only wanted to see the requests that you had asked for charters, then you could put those all together. And then by date submitted, the latest first will be at the top. And if you have a lot of trip requests out there, this can be a helpful sort, because it's going to put the last trip you entered at the top. And so that can be an easy way to find that one. So just kind of keep that in mind. There is a print button if for some reason you wanted to print this trip request. We hope that you won't, because we're trying to save paper for your district, and this is an electronic and it'll always be here for you, but just in case you needed to, you could. All right, so let's talk about what do you do? How do you submit a trip request? So again, we're in our main tab, and the first option here at the very top of the list says submit a request. And so in order to come in the very first time and start submitting trip requests, you're going to click on that option, submit a request. Now the request form is going to kind of slowly unfold as you answer questions about your trip. Now notice at first this gray box here at the top's got a lot of good information in it for you to review. Important information, particularly about the type of trips, co-curricular and extracurricular. So be sure you review the information in this gray box so that you will know if it is a co-curricular trip that you're requesting or an extracurricular trip that you are requesting. So be sure you read that information. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we do have a selection to make on the type of trip. And so when we click our little arrow beside the word select, it gives me the option, is this an athletic trip or a field trip? And of course, for the most part, since you were not an athletic director or coach putting in a request, you're going to be selecting a field trip. So we're going to click that option, and then it's going to ask us to pick the event. Is this co-curricular or extracurricular? And again, refer back to your gray box here at the top so that you can select the correct type of trip, co-curricular or extracurricular. Now, the next section that you're going to be completing is the trip leave and the trip return date and time. And so you select that. You can click on the little calendar here and it will bring up a calendar, and then you can either use your drop down to choose the month, or you can do the forward and choose the month, and you're going to pick the day that your trip is traveling. Notice that the trip return brings up that same day, but if you're requesting an overnight trip, you would simply just change the return day to another day besides the one-day trip. The trip time, again, you can use the little clock and click on that and scroll through and find the time that you're planning to leave on your trip, or you can just click right here in the field and bring up different times that start with that particular number. So put in the 1 and bring up the ones. So it's just kind of a little shortcut there perhaps. And then notice we have another question that's popped up, and it's asking us, will this trip cover 90 or more miles one way? And of course, if you answer yes, that's going to bring in another level of approval. So be sure that you can determine whether this trip will cover 90 miles or more one way. The next section has now displayed, and it is a comments box, and this box is going to be information that you'll fill in that will be important for the driver to know, and any information you print or you enter into this box will print on the trip ticket for the driver. So be sure that you indicate information that's important for the driver to know, such as pickup and drop-off location and any other important information for the driver. So the driver needs to know what, and you put that information in. Now, this next section here is a legend that will help you pick your school or department in the drop down. So, if you click on the little arrow, it's going to bring up and show you co-curricular, extracurricular, and band locations, and this is going to send this particular request to the correct approvers. Those that need to see co-curricular are listed if it's a co-location, extracurricular if it's an extracurricular location. So you can see here, for example, Back Creek Valley Elementary has a co-location and an X location, co-curricular, extracurricular, and so depending on the type of trip, is this co-curricular, extracurricular, will determine which one of these you will choose so that it goes to the right flow of approvers. Now, your high schools, they have a third location, BD, for band. So Spring Mills High School has a BD location if it's a band trip, a CO location if it is a co-curricular, and an EX location if it is an extracurricular trip. So just be very, very careful as to which one of these locations that you select so that you know that you have picked the right approval flow. So we're going to go ahead and choose as an example Berkeley Heights Elementary because this is a co-curricular trip. Now that I have selected that, more of my trip request form has unfolded for me to answer questions. So the next question asks, do I have students with health concerns on the trip? And I'm not going to list the students' names, only the health conditions due to HIPAA. Now this information will go to the school nurse. So if I click on yes here, then I am provided with a box to include one of my students has an EpiPen, perhaps due to a bee allergy or something like that. So I can put in that information, and the nurse is going to know this is, I have a student who needs an EpiPen, and the nurse is going to know who this is. The next section is for you to indicate where you are going, the destination. And so what you can do here is either start typing or use your drop down and bring up a list of the common destinations where your schools travel to. So if you wanted to for example, maybe find any locations that were museums. Notice I just typed museum in there, and then it brings up all of my museums that are in my common destinations. So maybe this is one of those that you would like to select. You're going to the For the Kids by George Children's Museum. So I was able to find that. Now, if you don't want to use the search by typing in a part of the name of the destination, you can just click on the arrow and just bring up all of the locations that are in the destination and just simply scroll through them until you find the destination that you're looking for. Now, if for some reason the destination that you were looking for is not in your list and you have looked and scrolled through and searched, we do give you a way to indicate that the destination was not listed. And so if you scroll to the very bottom of the list, there is an other. And if you choose that, it's going to open up a box where you can type in the destination where you were going, with the address. And so let's say, for example, you didn't find Martinsburg Library, maybe. And so you type that in, and notice here that it brings up a Google search of that choice that you've made. And so it brings up, and maybe it is this one here in Martinsburg, West Virginia, the Little Free Library. And so you could select that, and it would add that in as where you are going. Now your transportation department is going to kind of keep up with these destinations that were not listed and add them to your common destination. So if you are going back to the Little Free Library at some point, go ahead and check the common destinations and see if they've been added, because that is something that they can do. Once you have selected your destination from the drop down, or if it's not listed, you've keyed in the address in the destination not listed section, Then you're going to click on this button that says Calculate, Get Directions. And what this is going to do is bring up the round trip miles from your school to the destination. And you can also get printable driving directions for the driver if that's something that may be helpful. So you could click on the outbound or return directions and print those up. That can be very helpful for your driver perhaps. The travel tracker does offer a downloadable permission slip, and the permission slip is automatically going to populate with all of the details from the trip that's necessary for your parental permission slip, but you can add if there are specific instructions for this particular trip that you would like to be included in the permission slip. You can add these in. So maybe something like wear comfortable shoes. That we're going to be doing a lot of walking, and so we may, put something like that, additional information, bring money for the gift shop, or whatever that might be. The next section is for you to indicate the funding source of your trip, and there is a drop down here, and so you notice there's different funding sources, so you would choose the one that is applicable to this particular trip. Now there is a little bit of information, so the school covers the cost of the trip. Notice that a budget code field does pop up, but that is something that the approvers are going to work with, so you won't need to add anything there. Just selecting the funding source is all that we're asking you to do. Then we have contact information. So you want to, to give your contact information and how they can reach you when you're on the trip. So you'll put in that information. If it is the same as an emergency contact, there's not a second person on the trip or at the school that's your emergency contact, you can click the little checkbox, and that will just bring all that information from the first two fields into the emergency contact. Select your grade level that's making the trip. You can choose all grade levels, or you can choose more than one if that's what is traveling on the trip. The next comments box is for you to enter in college and career ready standards that are relating to the field trip. If there aren't any, if this is not applicable, then you can just put in an NA for not applicable there, and then you do want to include whatever the educational objectives are for the field trip. So maybe we're going to study George Washington or something. I'm not sure what's at that library, but it said something by George, so I'm just guessing. Study George Washington. Then we're going to put in our passenger count, the total number of adults and the total number of students. So pull that information in. Will the students be away during lunch? Yes or no? If you select yes, then the system is going to ask you, do you need packed lunches? And if you choose yes, then a message is going to be sent to your cafeteria manager notifying them that you have requested bag lunches, and it is going to ask that you do verify your count with the cafeteria manager in a timely manner so they can get those lunches prepared. If you say no, we're still going to let the cafeteria managers know so they don't have to prepare so much food. There won't be food waste. And then of course, if you're not going to be weighing during lunch, then you would just simply select no there. The next section is about chaperones, and you will answer these questions. Are chaperones required for the trip? If they are, then you'll select yes, and then you will go ahead and indicate if the chaperones are on the approved list. If you do have some chaperones that are not on the approved list, be sure you do indicate in the comments box here when those chaperones will be submitted so that they can be approved. And of course, if you are having chaperones and they are all okay, or they are all okay, yes, then you can just select yes, and you don't have to indicate when they'll be on the approved list. So just be sure you do fill this information out completely though. The next question is asking you really two things. Is it a walk-in trip, or are you going to be using external transportation like a rental car, plane, public transportation? So if you're doing anything like that at all, be sure you indicate and let the reprovers know and transportation know what you plan to do. If you're going to be walking or taking something else, or if you're going to be using one of the rental cars, just be sure you include which rental company you're using, whether it's Hertz or Enterprise. And if you're not using anything like that, then it'll just stay at no. Now, this next section is where you do your vehicle request. So, are you needing to use a charter or a yellow bus for transportation? So, we're going to, most of the time, be clicking yes for this, and this is going to open up the section of the form where you get to indicate your needs, your vehicle needs for transportation. The vehicle pickup and return time, this is for transportation use only, so you won't need to make any adjustments to those dates and times. They will do that for you. The type of vehicle that you need, if you will use the drop down here, and it does give you the option to choose a charter or a yellow bus. If you are um, using a yellow bus, then you would select that and then indicate how many vehicles do you think you're going to need. Basically, you would just divide the number of students you have by 50 to indicate the number of buses. And so we're only taking a small class of 24, so one bus will do us just fine, and we'll indicate one vehicle there. The uh, the other questions are regarding if you have students with special needs. So is there going to be a special needs bus required? So you'll just indicate yes or no there if you need a special needs bus. If you have need for wheelchair slots or any safety vest, you can indicate the number of safety vests here and put in the sizes that you need in this box here. So if you're going to need a safety vest and you're going to need two that are small. So that just indicate information like that. If you are traveling with special needs students, just be sure that you give, how many special needs students you have. So see, just let transportation know so that they can determine how many special needs buses they might be needing. Uh, so if you did need a special needs bus, you would indicate yes there. Okay. Now let's back up and let's say we're not using a yellow bus, we're going to use an approved charter. And so if we would be using an approved charter, then it's going to allow us to indicate that we need an approved charter, and we can pick which approved charter we're going to be needing. So if you're not sure which approved charter you're going to be needing, you can select the to be determined, and that will key in transportation that maybe you're going to need some help. So they'll get back and they'll get in touch with you to help you with that. Okay, so let's go back to our yellow bus here and the information that we had. There's one more question here, additional information, for example, if the trip is pick up or drop off only. So if you had that, you could put that in. This is not a required field. You don't have to put anything in there, but if you need to, you can indicate that for transportation's knowledge. We're going to keep scrolling, and the field trip acceptance of responsibility is basically just where you're going to click yes that you have filled out this form to the best of your ability, and you followed the instructions at the top, and you're following school board policy and asking and requesting this particular trip. So you'll simply just click yes here, and now you can't submit it unless you click yes, so go ahead and do that. If you needed to attach any supporting documents, you can do that here. If you hover over the little I, that's going to show you which type of files you can attach. So if you have a document that needs it, go ahead and save it as a PDF or something, and that will allow you to save that. One of the type of documents is a doc, but not docx. And a lot of Word will save as a docx. That one will not save. You have to save it as a doc or a PDF in order to attach a file. But it's very easy to do. You just click on the Choose File button here. It will take you to your computer, and you would simply click on what you're attaching, and it's going to add that file in to your request form, and then later an approver can get to this, or you can get to this file that you've attached. If you make a mistake and you didn't mean to attach that one, the little trash can to the right here will remove that file. It'll ask you, are you sure? And you'll say yes, and it'll remove that file from your trip request. And then notice there is, if you need to make any corrections or changes after submitting the trip, don't create a new request. Contact transportation to modify or cancel your trip. So just let them know if there's something that you need to do. And then you simply would click your Save Close button, and that's going to save this particular trip request into your list. So notice now we have 2 trip requests here in our list. If you tried to save and close it and it didn't, it might have popped up an error because you didn't fill something in. There are required fields that are noted with the asterisks, and if you skip one of those or don't answer that particular part, this request will not submit. Now it will flag you with a little yellow comment box, and it will tell you what you need to fill in. So just look for those and fill in the information so that you can submit the trip request. So at this point, this request has been submitted, and the first approver is going to be notified in an email that they have a trip request to approve. And then your approvers will be able to view your requests, and that possibly would be able to notify you if they had more information that was needed. They can do that in an email. As long as it's still pending this first level of approval, I can click on it and I can go in and continue to make changes. Notice that all my boxes are still editable and I can make changes. But once that first approver approves it, then I can't make changes as the requester other than the date and time and using that reschedule button at the bottom like we looked at early in the video. Now, one other thing that we need to look at, and we'll take a look at, is your calendar tab, and you do have visibility of a trip calendar. Now, this calendar is going to be displaying all of the trip requests that have been submitted in the district. Notice that there is a embedded training video on using the trip calendar, so I encourage you to take a look at that, and you can learn all you need to know about the trip calendar. There, of course, nothing on yours. Oh, there's a little bit here on your trip calendar. We have a few test trips out here, but notice that today's date is highlighted for us to draw our eye in there, and then we do have a few trips showing up. If we had a lot of trips on one particular day, there would be a scroll bar that you could use to view all of those trips. Notice that some of the trips are in orange and some of the trips are in blue. For example, the 25th and the 27th are in blue, and the 18th and the 29th are in orange. The blue ones are approved trips. They've been through the approval flow. The orange ones are still pending approval. So the request is out there, but they haven't been completely approved. All of these entries, there's a hover feature, so you can hover over any of these and bring up a window of information about this particular trip, the details about this trip. Notice since this one is an approved trip, it may have the vehicle and the driver assigned, and as it so happens it does. At the bottom of the window you can see the current vehicle reservation, so we can see the vehicle and the driver that are going on this particular trip. So you can hover over any of those. The calendar also has filtering feature here, so you can filter on the month, obviously, to pull up a different month to see the trips in that month. You can filter on certain schools, so you can pull up just your particular school's trips. If you wanted to just see a certain trip type, so just show me the field trips from my school, perhaps you could filter on the field trip, and then you could also filter on the different events, co-curricular or extracurricular. So anyway, that's how the calendar works, and you do have this embedded training video here, so please feel free to take a look at that. Now, if you ever have any trouble or any questions about the travel tracker, we encourage you to contact our support and training link here in the upper right corner. Under the word log out is a link to the support and training, so please don't hesitate to click on that. If it's during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30, you will see a little blue icon here. That's our chat for support, and so you can click on that and it will bring up a little chat box, and you can type in your question and someone on the desk will be glad to help you. They can chat back and forth with you, or you can give them your phone number and they'll give you a call. So don't hesitate to use that. If it's after hours, nights, weekends, holidays, you can always create a support ticket here in the middle of the screen, and it will bring up a way for you to enter in your contact information and your question and submit that, and someone on the desk will review this ticket. If it is life-changing, critical, they will even contact you after hours. If it's something that can wait till the next business day, they will wait, but they will be back and contact you the next business day, in the morning. So that's a really good thing to note as well. Also notice here under the graphic we have some training videos in a Vimeo or YouTube format. So you can click on that training videos YouTube and pull up a library of training videos that cover lots of different topics for lots of different people. So as a requester, you might find the creating a duplicate request helpful, and you can click on that link and watch how do I create a duplicate request. That can be very, very helpful to you. There's some for how do I cancel a trip, the I don't know what else might be interesting, but you can look through the permission slips. That one might be helpful, pulling down your permission slip. In fact, let me show you how to do that, how to get to those permission slips if you are using them. So let me go back to our, oh, I can't show you because they're not approved. Once a trip request is approved, you will see a link that it says download permission slip. And let me show you where that'll be. So if and when the trip is approved, in the destination part and the special instructions for permission slip, in this white space here, it will say download permission slip, and you would just simply click that, and that permission slip will download. It's a Word document. It'll download on your machine, and you can print that. And it is a Word document, so if you needed to make changes to it, you could before you print it out, and then make copies of it to send home with your students. I will mention one other thing, two other things actually. In your main tab, in addition to getting help from our support and training, we do have an end user's guide here, and if you can click on that, and it'll bring up a document that will give you screenshots and step-by-step instructions for submitting a trip request. Now these are general instructions, so we're not specific to your trip request, but you can see, generally speaking, how do you work with the trip request, and as an end user, what are some of the other things you can do. And also, one other thing that I'll mention is that once your trip is approved, you will be notified in an email that the trip request has been approved, and then when you do have a vehicle and a driver assigned, you're going to receive another email notification letting you know that you have had a vehicle and or a driver assigned. But remember, you do have that information also in your travel tracker. So you don't have to keep checking travel tracker to see when it's approved and when it has had an assignment. You will be notified, but it is here as well. So hopefully you will begin using travel tracker and be very, very happy with the trip request, and how you have visibility of everything going on with your request. You don't have to wonder whose desk is it sitting on now, and what the approval is, and when you get your vehicles and your drivers assigned, you'll have that information as well. So thank you so much. We look forward to a long partnership with Berkeley County Schools and the Travel Tracker. Goodbye.